tough, battle-hardened veterans. All the planning in the world, and yet no clue, what a complete and utter waste. The sheer, deep pointlessness of it all. This, however, is another kind of encounter, the Poteau Crossroads ambush. A nondescript bend in a road, it could be anywhere. A few pine trees dot the landscape, and an embankment curves the road around a corner. Very ordinary, almost forgettable. Just over there lies Poteau, a small village at a minor crossroads. Yes, we're becoming quite familiar with these crossroads here in the Bulge. Back there is a village of wrecks, and this is this is south of Camp Grouper Piper. Yeah. And on the morning of the 18th of December, 1944, Camp Grouper Hansen, which is also part of the 1st SS Panzer Division. So stand out, you know, these guys are into it. Yeah. Yeah. 1st SS Panzer Corps with all the kit. All the kit, all the gear, and no idea. Anyway, they're coming down here from Rex. Yeah. And they're trying to get to the Poteau Crossroads. And interesting about them is they are protecting Piper's southern flank. Yes. Piper's the main event. They're the kind of Nittler. Yeah. Camp Grouper. Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. And they're coming along here in Camp Hansen. They are, you know, again, they're kind of tough, uncompromising. Don't think twice about kind of shooting people down. And actually, the previous day they've overrun the 333rd Field Artillery Battalion. Yes. Which is an all-black unit. Yes, that's right. They're starting to be used now by the U.S. Army in the European theater. They get overrun, taken prisoner. Yeah. But 11 of these black servicemen manage to escape. Yeah. Yeah. They take shelter in this house in this little village, and men of Camp Grouper Hansen find them, take them out of the house, pull them out of the house and make them run in front of their Sherman Various. And then they run them down into the side of the road and finish them off, kill them and shoot them. Yeah. And they're not found until February or something. Right. So they've got a bit of form on them. By the way, coming in the opposite direction that morning as part of the reinforcements of the 7th Armored Division, the United States 7th Armored Division was going to rescue the 106th Division around St. Vith. Yeah. It's Task Force Mayseyes after Major James Mayseyes, who's in charge of various units. There's reconnaissance vehicles. There's light Stuart tanks. Yeah. So, he's got some Greyhound anti-tank guns. Greyhound armored cars. That's right. Yeah. 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 Those really tracks. Fantastic looking things. That's great. But basically, it's a corner. It's a corner. And literally, the Americans are coming around here and they just come straight into them. Yeah. And Hansen's lot are quicker and they shoot up the first thing. It's a bit of the rest of the column, sort of does hasty reversal. There's a bit of a firefight going on. But at that point, there are some war correspondents. Well, so this is why this corner is, well, you could almost call it iconic because it's part of the iconography of the German war machine that has come to us. Yeah. Particularly for the Battle of the Bulge, but also, there's footage here that's shot by after-action German propaganda footage. They come along in the immediate aftermath of the ambush with burning vehicles. They get the guys from Leander to reenact stuff. So, he has them skulking along here, on this embankment, and there's a little ditch on the other side. You can see them in there. In fact, actually, I've got it just here. Brilliant. It's really worth looking at. Well, and it's some of any book about the Battle of the Bulge, you will see stills from this, and usually on the front cover. There you are. Yeah. So you can see burning smoke, there's the trees there. Yep. And they're in there. And the thing is, because they're SS Leibstandard, they've got all the kit, right? So what you've not got here is Luftwaffe guys in greatcoats with the wrong helmets. It's SS with bandoliers and smocks, and their potato mash jammed into their belts, and they're all smoking captured Camel cigarettes. Yeah. Yeah. On the wreckage of the American village. That's the one. Yeah. There's the image. Yeah. It's amazing footage though, isn't it? It is amazing footage. And you can see why it has become so famous, or notorious. And also, they completely fulfill the image of the Wehrmacht. They're all young. Yeah. They're fit. They're also not all boys. Those guys are men. Yes. You know, they look like and if you're what people call a wearable, if you're into the Wehrmacht, yes, those images are absolute catnip, aren't they? Yeah. They really, really are. They really are. They're going along here, aren't they? This is the thing. They're literally going along here. Yeah. 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 I mean, the landscape's changed a little bit because obviously this cops wasn't here. This was open fields at the time. Yeah. And there were more trees around the corner, coming around the corner here. That was a kind of road going off, and the road up through the track, up through the woods, was more pronounced. So, it's almost like a crossroads here. But the main crossroads of Pato is literally, you know, not even half a mile that way. It's just there. And that becomes the scene of a really big, proper engagement. In the big scheme of things, this isn't that big a deal. Yeah. But it's a critical part of the memory of the Battle of the Bulge, isn't it? So, look at these pictures, take what you can from them, but realize what they are. Yes. And I think the whole glorification of Bastogne really does detract from the rest of the battle, which is enormous. Yeah. And one has to remember that the main German thrust is in the north, which is a long way from Bastogne. Yeah. 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 Like and subscribe for more of this kind of Bastogne busting with us, walking the ground. I mean, it is very strange being here because it is, I hate using the word iconic around Nazism, but a big part of the way they worked was using iconography and propaganda. This is a source of some of the most enduring propaganda of the Second World War, the idea of the Nazi war machine. Right. Absolutely. And if the propaganda in the Third Reich at this time is that we're fighting back, we're not beaten yet, there's still plenty of hope. We're going to divide the Western Allies, get to Antwerp, and all the rest of it. And you see footage like this in cinema screens in Berlin or Leipzig or wherever it might be, and you see destroyed American vehicles and tough, battle-hardened veterans walking past. You're going to think, yeah, we're still in this. We're still in the game. Yeah. When actually, you're so not. You're so not. Yeah. And that's the importance of propaganda, isn't it? And I'm sure even that feeds back into the idea that this was even a gamble. Hitler's last camp. It's not a gamble. No. Because there's nothing he can win. No. No, I agree. I agree. It's amazing to be here, though. Yeah, it is amazing to be here. Weirdly, this sort of is how I imagined it would be. Oh, okay. I knew there was an embankment. I knew there were some trees. Fewer burning greyhounds. Cool bit of kit, though, that greyhound. Famous steward as well. Yeah. Yeah. A lovely, lovely bit of gear. Right. Top. Analysis in the pub of Papers attack. Don't know if you've heard of this Belgian beer, Stella. Chin. Cheers. Too much. It's so annoying, isn't it? The shortened days. Yes. You know. Yes. I mean, that's the thing where we've really been up against it, relative to normally, basically the middle of the summer. I was thinking how nice it was actually getting a beer. Well, no. We're running out of light and there's so much to do here. So many places to see. Oh, and there's a beaten track in the Ardennes, and we've been off some of that. Off quite a lot of it, actually. Quite a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, quite hard choices about where to go and what to do. But I think we've, hit the main events. That are dictating the pace and dictating the story. And also, if you want to tell the story, paper's quite a good microcosm of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. Yeah. Because he sort of goes through he goes through triumph and disaster, doesn't he? Yeah, you do. And you get this sort of, they set off late, and then they get to Hansfield, and they're all still quite together. Yeah. Yeah. And then every time they stop, a little bit gets chipped away, either mopping up or whatever, and it's just getting narrower and narrower and narrower. Then it gets more and more desperate. And then you have these totally bonkers battles at Stumont and at Sean, where they come up against the 504th, really, really brutal, vicious battles, but to absolutely no end if you're paper. Yeah. If you're the Germans, I mean, it's over by then. But it's interesting, isn't it, with paper? Because he's either seen as a pin-up boy for the SS lover types, Geordie hat, all that. He's obviously incredibly good-looking, young, and dynamic. And he comes accompanied with photographs of his men and other SS types associated with him, for want of a better word, glamour. Yeah. Or the completely opposite end, which is he was rubbish, he was arrogant. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? That account of his interviews. Yes. I think it's Heckler, who interviews him for the Foreign Military Studies, a series of interviews with comparatively senior German officers after the war. Yeah. Yeah. Where they're trying to pick their brains and find out what made them tick. And he says he's a typical arrogant SS type. Well, he does this, paper does the thing of speaking perfect English, but he doesn't reveal it until they're well into the interrogation, and the interpreter is like, oh, I didn't know he spoke English. He corrects the interpreter for some of his interpretation. So Heckler gets this, but obviously papers. Piper was fully sold on being a Nazi. He's lost. He's on the losing side. He's trying to salvage, indeed in that, he's trying to salvage for himself some dignity. Well, he's a proud man, isn't he? I do think though, I think it's been really, really good to look at him and what he's done and do that once we've done the Northern Shoulder, once we've done Kink and Rockerat, and the Elsenborn Ridge. Once we'd come through that story of basically the misfire of the Northern Shoulder of the offensive, he, on paper, he is the thing that puts the willies up the Americans. His advances and murdering, the murder of the prisoners at, outside Malmedy also is part of the picture of how the Americans characterize the Battle of the Bulge as it's happening to them. Yes. Isn't it? And I think he's quite useful for telling the story of, what they're trying to do, not of the overreach of the entire thing. And the irony of it is, Frank Champ, just north of Stavelot, where there's this huge stash, he doesn't know about it because it's not his map, so he misses it. Yeah. 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 And just all of it, the sort of emptiness and folly of it, because everywhere he's got to, there is the question of, then what? Every move he makes weakens his ability to make his next move. Yes. So it's the relentless diminishing returns, which, after all, are sort of emblematic of the Nazi war effort. You could even say that the whole thing is emblematic of the way the Germans fight the war. They make this great splash that gives everyone a fright, but ultimately, it doesn't add up to a hill. Can't get them anywhere and their destruction, no, Piper's men get away, but it's a completely empty escape for them, isn't it? Because they've got nothing. They've had no effect. A soldier with no weapons is not much of a soldier. No effect. No effect either. I suppose what I'm driving at though is that Piper is either seen as a pantomime villain or he's seen as a pin-up boy. And, of course, the truth is much more nuanced, and it needs to be much more nuanced. he's far from being any saint, and I'm far from being a Piper apologist. But I do think it's unhelpful to bracket people as sort of arrogant, necessarily arrogant, SS types. I mean, I'm sure he is a little bit arrogant, but he is part of that regime, part of that system. He has been indoctrinated. He has got immense responsibility on his shoulders, particularly once the northern shoulder fails. Really, once the northern shoulder fails, you should say, this isn't going to work. Hold your line. Shorten your lines. Stop where you are. Yeah. And at least you might be able to cause some serious damage to the Americans and delay them or whatever. But this narrowing of the point as you get further and further west actually doesn't achieve anything. The other thing that's striking, isn't it, is that there are divisions in this, and I know, obviously, that the troops have been through the disaster of Normandy. Most of the divisions we're talking about are being reincorporated. Yeah. Phoenix divisions. Exactly. But then that, after all, again is emblematic of the way the German war effort has gone. These are divisions that did incredible things in 1941 on paper with Barbarossa, getting to Smolensk by the 15th of July, great advances, all this sort of stuff, and yet here they are, up against some doughboys 3 years later, who they have surprised. They've had the same effect of surprise as they had on the Red Army. And look where they wind up, within, if you're generous, 10 days. 10 days of chaos for the Americans. To be fair, they've had a similar experience coming up against the British and Canadians up around Caen, with similarities to panzer attacks in Normandy at the beginning of the campaign. The panzer attack of 7 panzer divisions around can just stop dead. And it makes you wonder, how much is it the brilliance of the Germans, and how much is it the complete abject failure of the opponents? Well, yes. How often is it who you're up against rather than what you're doing? Everyone accepts that the Red Army in the opening couple of months of Barbarossa were absolutely useless. It's not really until the second half of 1942 that new professionalism starts to grip in the Red Army. They start understanding concepts of deep battle. People like Rokossovsky are given their chance to shine. But this is arguably a deep battle attempt by the Germans, and they can't pull it off. They can't pull it off, even with people doing it all around them. They've learned nothing from the Soviets. They're not looking. They haven't got their heads around the Americans and how the Americans actually like to operate. I think there are 2 huge challenges that the German forces face. The first is that it doesn't matter how good your SS units are, and even they are not that good, or the Panzer units, they're not that good. Attacking is much harder than defense. You've got undertrained men doing attacks. Attacking is much more complicated than defense. You can sit in your Sanger or foxhole and bang away on a machine gun, it doesn't require a huge amount of discipline. Go, new boy, go and fire that machine gun on a fixed line. It's not difficult. But attacking requires coordination, fieldcraft, and leadership. Leadership and all those things are lacking. At the end of the day, camp is still just a column of armor. It's got some good stuff in it, good kit, some experienced men, but it hasn't got enough. You saw that with the 3rd Panzer Division following up behind the 9th Panzer Regiment, absolutely woeful. At this stage of the war, there is no way they can generate enough. They haven't got time. If you don't do it now, you can't train the Volksgrenadier formations, which are essentially paper formations. The other thing that strikes me is the success of American makeshift units. We go on about the tactical flair of the Germans and their brilliance, organizing themselves into battle groups, but time and time again, American soldiers are flung together in a makeshift fashion and do really well. What you're actually looking at is mission command, operational skill, the things that the Allies beat themselves up about not quite possessing in the way they imagined the Germans did. It's very, very strange. You should never be complacent, but it's odd that they don't pat themselves on the back. They forget a lot of these systems. Can it be argued that the war in the West was the greater threat to Germany? Perhaps. The outcome and the fact that the Germans embarked on this and attempted it is a vindication of the broad front strategy, recognizing that the greater enemy is the West rather than the East. Hitler's thinking was partly a mind game, to split the Allies. Until the end of April, it was about dividing the Allies, creating chaos. It's a very Hitler approach, division, negative thoughts, us and them. The main thing here is what a complete and utter waste, the nihilism of it, the sheer deep pointlessness. It's not a gamble. I understand why people call it Hitler's last role, a gamble. You have to try and figure out why he would do this, given it's fated to disaster. It's doomed to failure. Otherwise, everything that happens from here on in is pointless nihilism, amounting to nothing, with all the lives lost. Yeah. This battle's tragedy, I think. It's been amazing, though, to do it in January with the snow on the ground and the surrounding neighbors. We've been lucky with sun and snow. We've had some neighbors today, which has been great. Really atmospheric, seeing all that mist, it makes you think this is pretty unpleasant. I'd rather be in a pub than in the foxhole. I like being in the pub after being out in the foxhole. They paid the ultimate price for our freedom. They did, but they shouldn't have had to. None of this should have happened. It's emblematic of Hitler's war. What would have happened if they hadn't fought? They would have still carried on. It would have meant stronger air effort against whatever armor they were mustering, which would have been busted anyway. The general narrative is that it holds up the Allies. I don't think it does. Any assault is going to try and hold up Monty's efforts to straighten his lines. It's all untidy. Doing anything in December or January is really, really hard. What it does is electrify American resolve. It's an American epic. No two ways about it. It doesn't belong to one unit, it belongs to all of them. 740th Tank Battalion went to a depot, picked up British DD tanks, and supported the 500th, amazing. The Allies were about to split, and they didn't know their ass from their elbow. Crazy. Well, thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe. I don't know if you've heard of this beer, Stella, most exotic and foreign. We are looking at sponsors. Cheers. Yeah. Yeah. Cheers. It's been great.